March 19th. What is March 19th? Why do we want to talk about it? It is the Feast of St. Joseph, so let's get into it. Hey, y'all, this is Camille. If this is your first time here, thanks for stopping by. If you've been here before and decided to come back, thank you. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. So, tonight we're going to talk about St. Joseph. Yesterday, March 19th, was his feast day. So I'm going to do a little show and tell. I'm holding Tiny Mike. So for my OG peeps who are my ride or dies, first off, thank you. Thank you so much. It is so wonderful to know that I'm not screaming into the void, that I got my peeps. So thank you, thank you. Um, Leave a comment about, I'm probably going to clip it on at some point in the video because I have some show and tell, but I'm going to hold it. Still just, working out the audio with the high ceilings. Unfortunately, the high ceilings won't be a problem for much longer, but that's another TED Talk. That's another video. Anyway, sip of tea time. Oh, that feels good. I had a really awesome event that, ooh, I got some good video for you guys. Oh my God, I got some good video. I need to learn how to splice. If there's anybody who can teach me, and if there is an easy way when you have to, two separate videos that you want to connect together, I'm not even clever enough to know what that's called. We used to call it splicing. I don't know. But I got some really cool, this is more tour guide, cool stuff in New Orleans, haunted building, famous restaurant, backstory. So, if you guys, I got some really cool footage. I had a private event that I had to read at today. I had a couple of really, really nice people at that, and it's in an awesome restaurant. Anyway, different video. But all that to say that between that and then there was the blessing of the Tulane students, which I got cool video footage for you guys. So look forward to some cool videos that will be posted in the next week or so. Voodoo blessings out in public because New Orleans. But St. Joseph, yesterday was his day. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about St. Joseph, who he is, what his deal is, um, how he is honored and revered from the standpoint of Catholicism, how he is honored and revered and worked with from the standpoint of voodoo, and a little bit of how if you wanted to work with him, you could, because even though March 19th was his day, he's kind of a big deal, so people will be rocking it out with St. Joseph for the rest of the week, or throughout the weekend. People internationally will be honoring him, celebrating him, parades, altar spaces, and tables set up for him, processions for him, blessings of his and cleansing of his statues, consecrating statues. Like, so let's unpack it a little bit. So Saint Joseph is in Christianity, specifically in Catholicism, is the father of the Christ child. I was trying not to say baby Jesus, but I realized I just still said it in a different way because I can't say that man's name anymore without baby Jesus. Joseph of Arimathea is the husband of the Holy Blessed Virgin, Mother Mary, Jesus's earthly father, if you subscribe to the Christian mythos. And he also has a prominent place in voodoo. Now, from again, sticking with the Catholicism aspect, Joseph was a carpenter. He was a laborer. He was a hands on, hardworking, hands in the dirt gentleman. And he was chosen to be Mary's husband and act in the capacity of Jesus's father. Subscribe to the story or not, but that's the story. And so he is highly revered as he was canonized as a saint. So people could go to St. Joseph for a multitude of reasons. One of the names is Terror of demons. I learned that tonight and doing a little tiny bit of research before this video to add to my own personal experiences and personal knowledge base with St. Joseph. Terror of demons. I did not know that. I know Mary is Holy Queen of Angels, but her husband is Terror of Demons. I mean, talk about the dynamic duo. That's pretty badass. That's disrespectful, sacrilegious. It's pretty bad. Um, so he is called upon oftentimes for exorcisms because the power of his energy is said to dispel demons, something that is very good at disempowering them and them being afraid of. So for spiritual cleansing work, one could work with Saint Joseph. As a carpenter, anything that has to do with woodwork, stonemasons, contractors, real estate agents, carpentry, I think I said that, buying a house, selling a house, renovating a house, um, the safety in the structural integrity of the physical home itself. Also, creating a home from the masculine energy, from the divine masculine aspect of fatherhood. So, anything that has to do with fatherhood, becoming a father, being a provider in the capacity of, masculine or male role, um, marriage, partnership, any of those things you could go to St. Joseph. Now, I know there's a lot of people who will turn saints upside down. Not my jam. If you do, light in progress. For me, that's just not something I'm comfortable with, but many people will turn the image or the statue of the saint upside down until their prayer has been or their wish has been fulfilled or um, I don't know. It just kind of feels like, a mafia coming after you or something. Feels a little strong armish. So I don't turn my spirits upside down. But if you do, light in progress. I've known people who have clients that I have, you know, sent to St. Joseph or suggested they could work with him to have really good results as far as real estate. I know a friend of mine, an old friend, we're not friends anymore, but that's another story. No beef, just time, distance, life. She and I used to be flight attendants together when we worked for the airline. We were also roommates. And she went to school to get a real estate license. And this was in '08 at this point. When did we come out? Yeah. Yeah, this is like in '08 when there was the crisis, the bubble popped, housing bubble burst, and nobody was selling houses. Jackie Marcados was selling houses left, right, and center, and she worked with St. Joseph consistently. So if you have any kinds of needs that come under those areas or those headings, he is a wonderful saint that you could work with. He's got a very gentle, loving energy. I guess except if you're a demon and then terror of demons. I'm gonna keep saying that because that's just cool. Um, it's very metal. um, Now, as far as Saint Joseph from the voodoo perspective, he is associated with Papa Loco. So, Loco, and I'll just pick up my statue now of St. Joseph, and this is the image that is used for Loco. Quick little aside in case you're new around here, not going to go into a deep dive about this. I have in other videos, but voodoo, Christianity, there's a consistent overlap of the religions and there are a multitude that come under this broad term that is voodoo, but there's a confluence, an overlap of the Catholic saint and the spirit. So you'll see a lot of Catholic imagery and iconography used in ATRs because colonialism, religious persecution, yada, yada. So they found saints that matched up in some way with the energy of their spirits. So that's why you'll see this overlap. Anyway, this is St. Joseph, and this is my small statue to him. And this I did acquire I got this one from the church. Yes, I did. I got this one from St. Louis Cathedral right in the middle of Jackson Square. Now, you can get oftentimes at different spiritual stores known as botanicas, you can get statues and oftentimes the Catholic versions, the Catholic imagery of the statues. But this one I was able to get at the cathedral. So this is Saint Joseph holding the lily with the Christ child and in his brown and purple robes. And you'll see the flower, the lily. I hope that's coming up without being blurred. The St. Joseph's lily. So there is an actual flower that is known as the St. Joseph's lily. And that's something that I will tell people. If you work with St. Joseph, particularly if you are working with regard to a home or construction or dealing with a contractor or real estate, anything like that, that a really lovely way to say thank you is to plant a St. Joseph's lily in your yard or to have the pot inside the house. That's a really lovely way to give acknowledgement and appreciation to St. Joseph, or to have the flowers, put them on the altar space and light a candle and say thank you to him. So you can see the brown and the purple, oftentimes those colors, not always. Sometimes it's brown and green, sometimes it's brown and what else have I seen? Brown and purple, brown and green. I think it's brown and white. The purple is the majesty, the bringing in more of a royal. Though he was not a king, he is a descendant of David, King of Kings. So the royal aspect, the royalty of Christ the King, and that energy of just indicative of someone worthy of a lot of respect or having a title or prominent position. And then the brown, you almost always see brown with St. Joseph because brown, someone who worked, got their hands dirty, worked in the dirt, worked with wood, brown wood, So you'll see oftentimes brown on his statue, but this is a sweet little statue of St. Joseph. And this is on one of my altars. But I wanted to bring it out here to show you guys. And as far as in voodoo, Haitian voodoo, St. Joseph is syncretized with the spirit Papa Loco. And Papa Loco is the spirit who is the keeper of the peristyle. The peristyle is we don't have churches. We have what's called a peristyle. So I don't know if you were a Quaker, I guess the meeting house, the physical location, the physical building where ceremony is held in Haitian voodoo is called the peristyle. So Loco is the father. So he is the father of the house. And he is the first Ugan, so first priest. So anyone who is initiated into voodoo, you are not a priest or priestess if you have not gone to see Loco, which is its own whole thing. But if you are a Mambo or an Ugan, priest, a Mambo is a priestess, Ugan is a priest, then you've had a conversation with Papa Loco and he has given you your blessing. If you have the asan, which is a gourd with beads that's specially prepared by your godparent in a certain pattern, in a certain style, and certain colors of the beads, and certain way that it's done that is very specific, so that your asan, if you receive asan, it is yours specifically. It's not a carbon copy that everyone gets the same asan. It doesn't look the same. But if you have the asan, you have gone to the forest, you've talked to Loco and had a conversation with him directly. and he has given you the blessing as the initial priest and bestowed the title and the responsibilities that go with that title of being an Ugan or a Mambo, and certain secrets that will be revealed to you by your godparent through Loco and his blessing. So, because again, the energy of fatherhood is why St. Joseph is syncretized with Papa Loco. So, let's see. I'm going to show you guys a candle. Um, yeah, let's go and move into the candle. Hold on. We're clipping and we're clipping. Okay. So if you wanted to get a candle to work with St. Joseph, pretty much no one works with Loco unless Loco has, you know, Loco calls for you. You don't really go to Loco. He calls you. And, but if you want to work with St. Joseph, 7-day candles, tea lights, as I always say, tea lights are always perfect. They're always appropriate. You cannot go wrong with them. So you could definitely work with a tea light candle. If you wanted to work with a 7-day candle, here is an example of one for St. Joseph. I've also seen yellow. Some people will use yellow for St. Joseph. I definitely would not say it's wrong at all. It's just not what I feel. I feel Joseph is more of a yellow, more of a white, or more of a brown candle. But this one is my preference for St. Joseph is brown if I have an option. But if not, a white candle is perfectly fine. Now this one is, as you can see, it has his name, St. Joseph. That's the candle company. So if you wanted to get this particular candle, I don't know if that's coming up clear. I hope it is. But you see the beautiful imagery of him holding Jesus, the St. Joseph's lily, and the robes in brown and green, which oftentimes with Loco, you will see green if somebody is working with Papa Loco. Doesn't have to only be, but Loco is associated with trees, with leaves, with plant medicine. Sorry, it must be my neighbor outside. I sincerely hope it is my neighbor outside. Guys, hold on, because I'm not going to stop making this video. We're way too far in for me to stop, so bear with me. I just need to see what's the haps out here. Okay, I don't see anything. Forgive me. You guys know she's not an editor. She isn't. So, Loco associated with trees and leaves. So a lot of time you'll see the green for that reason. But this is a lovely image. And again, just a father's love. You can just see in this imagery conveying a father's love, a father's compassion, a father's presence, a father's kindness, a father's protection, a father holding you and having you when you need that safety and security. So that's the kind of energy that you can put into your prayers if working with St. Joseph. And on this candle, they do have, San Jose, St. Joseph. So this company does put the saint's name in English and in Spanish, and then the prayer, Hella, Hella, in both English and in Spanish. Now, I know you guys have heard me say always, 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 if you get anything, I don't care if you got it from the voodoo shop, I don't care if you got it from the Catholic store, I don't care if you got it from Dollar Tree, which, if you live in certain cities, You can easily get these kinds of candles at a Walgreens, Dollar Tree, wherever. Always cleanse your sacred tools first. Whatever it is, a piece of jewelry, a statue, your tarot cards, anything that's used for spiritual purposes, it's so important that you cleanse it to get it at an energetic set point of zero, and then consecrate it with whatever oils or smoke or whatever that's appropriate to it. So sometimes it's cleaning. I use the word cleanse more from a spiritual esoteric standpoint, but cleaning, look at how filthy this candle is. It was sitting on a shelf for a while, and it was one of the last ones in the back, in tandem. So always clean, but sometimes they don't look dirty, but that means cleanse. So Florida water, gold standard. Cologne 1800. There's somebody on my altar, and I think it might be St. Joseph, who likes Cologne 1800. So I'll probably cleanse this with that. But Palo Santo is definitely a great herb to use for smoke, for cleansing, for working with St. Joseph. Um, Holy water, he's a Catholic saint, so holy water would be very appropriate to cleanse any candle or statue for St. Joseph. There's something else. Oh, frankincense and myrrh, cornerstone in the Catholic Church. So any of those things you could use to cleanse, to consecrate. I do like, when I work with St. Joseph, I will usually use frankincense and myrrh oil, but I like dirt oil. I know it sounds weird, you guys, but it smells really good. It smells like, well, what it is, dirt, but it doesn't smell dirty. It smells like earth, like fresh soil after a beautiful rainstorm, or like potting soil when you're planting bulbs or flowers. It just smells like this rich, beautiful, I don't know. I think it's one of those things, either you really like it or you're like, that smells like dirt. No, thank you. But this company, I really like their stuff. I get them on Amazon, and I have several of their oils. Their frankincense and myrrh, mensa mensa. Their rose is strong and beautiful, but the dirt, I love it. So I have a couple of spirits, one in particular, two in particular, fair, two in particular who like it. But St. Joseph, I'll use the dirt because, again, he was a man who got his hands dirty. He was a carpenter, so he was in the dirt. Also, that energy of being grounded, down to earth, the elements, supportive. And so, with that, I think I'll wrap everything up by bringing it to tarot. Actually, two more points, two more segments. With tarot, for me, St. Joseph, the archetype of the father, so the emperor. Now, I could see where there's a yes, but there's a no for that. But if we're looking strictly at the archetype of a masculine energy, of father figure, of support, of structure, well, a carpenter literally builds structures. So the Emperor card, and I pulled out cards from two separate decks to look at for you, to show you. Excuse me. The first one is the Lacrimosa Tarot, and I am going to pop on the old readers for this. The Lacrimosa Tarot from Rose Bay, and this is not St. Joseph. This is actually, oh no, sorry. Spoiler. Show you that in a minute. This is not St. Joseph. This is actually St. Matthew, as painted by Caravaggio. In the Lacrimosa Tarot, this is the Emperor, St. Matthew, Giuseppe di Ribera, 1632. So this is actually St. Matthew, but it still gives that very wise, old, settled father figure. I'm fighting a ring light. Nothing we can do, guys. Nothing we can do about it until they change that. So the Emperor card and spoiler, the King of Coins, I would say would be a really good version of in the tarot, a good card to represent the energy of Saint Joseph, Master of Earth. Let's see who this is in the Lacrimosa Tarot. Saint Francis Borgia. So in the yay, brain fog once again has struck. Noble Moon Tarot by my dear friend Claire Christine Sargenti. In the Noble Moon Tarot, this is her Emperor, a beautiful collage deck. I love this deck so much. I love it so hard. And also the Ten of Pentacles could be a part of St. Joseph's energy because, again, family, father, building, legacy, um, earth, things that are passed on, uh, tradition. So those are two cards for me in particular with St. Joseph energy um, in them. So Claire and I went to St. Joseph celebration on Feast of St. Joseph yesterday. Again, it is March 19th. It's his sacred day. But there will be altars, there are altars that will be lit up and